What is up, guys? William here from fitnessforbackpain.com. I'm super excited about today's topic. We're talking about pushing the whip, aka the grocery getter, aka driving. For the day that I'm shooting this video, we are in September, going closer and closer to October, which means it's closer and closer to December, which means we're talking about Thanksgiving, we're talking about Christmas, we're talking about just all things holiday family travel, which means you're gonna have a lot of window time, a lot of behind the wheel driving. And this is a very, very scary thing for a lot of people who have had a fusion, who have had any kind of history of low back pain. So in this video today, we're gonna be talking about some really cool strategies to help approach driving with back pain. If you get out of the car and your back is just smoked, if you are scared to death to be on the trip that you're about to go on because you have a history like clockwork of low back pain, and you have tried all the things. You tried all the ergonomic stuff, you tried all the chin tucking, you tried all the things that the YouTubes and all the internet websites have taught you, and they're all crap. If that's how you're feeling right now, watch this video. There's some really cool strategies you can go, and this is from an actual back pain sufferer. I'm not just some like clinician talking about things that I learned in my back pain 101 class I took, 10 years ago. So this approach is different. It's gonna be some new things, it's gonna be some things of different, just how you look at things and approach things while you're in the car. Hopefully it helps you. If this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe. Without further ado, let's jump in. So I'm gonna break this video down into different sections. One, you're gonna see me talking here with you right now. Look at that focus. And then you're gonna see me inside my actual whip, my grocery getter. Okay, don't joke on it because it's nice. It's a nice grocery getter. The first point I want to make when it comes to driving with low back pain, when it comes to long hauls in the car and trying to navigate pain, is you have to learn to stay relaxed. This topic is actually a really big deal because a lot of times leading up to the trip, we have issues. We're scared, we're afraid of what's gonna happen. When we get in the car, we're expecting things to happen. We're expecting at that 2-hour mark in the car, we can, like clockwork, start expecting things to get tight, start expecting our hamstrings to go kind of numb, and maybe our toes get a little tingly. So what happens is we start tensing up, we start getting scared, we start freaking out and thinking, okay, if I can just maintain that perfect ergonomic position that Dr. Joe Schmo on YouTube taught me, then I should be fine. One of the best and most overlooked strategies, and even if you think that you do this, you're probably not doing it very well, is staying calm, staying relaxed in your seat. We always think we have to have this perfect position when in reality that is not the case. The more your body and tissues can be in a comfortable, safe environment, when it comes to just being in a certain position, the better you're gonna feel. And this may not be the most ergonomic position, right? You gotta get rid of this perfect posture mentality because in a car, it doesn't exist unless the seat was custom designed for you, which it wasn't. Most people, I don't know anyone who's had a custom car seat designed for them. So back to reality is you have to be in your car seat and be using the car seat for what it is. Don't try to maneuver yourself into a weird position or try to keep yourself in some super rigid, stiff, tight position that's gonna, stack all your joints perfectly. Don't worry about that because that's just gonna cause tension. It's just gonna cause more panic, more fear, more anxiety around how am I gonna maintain this position for the next 800 miles? It's impossible. So while you're breaking your trip up, you have to focus on being relaxed, using the seat, relaxing your muscles, getting into a good, healthy position for you, comfortable, and then just trying to relax. Now, one bonus tip to this first point I'm trying to make is I mentioned earlier about thinking ahead, right? Before you actually even take the trip, a very powerful tool that you can do and use is visualization. There's scientific words around this concept, but essentially what you're doing is you're thinking about your trip. You're thinking about, not about fearing what's gonna happen, not about fearing how bad it's gonna be or how 900 miles is the most you've ever driven and you can only usually make it 400 miles before your back gets all jacked up. Not thinking about that kind of stuff because that's not gonna help anything. More anxiety, more fear, more panic, that's all that's gonna do, and it's gonna jack up your pain system. We're trying to desensitize your pain system, bring it down. So you have to fill your mind with what you want and what you are expecting the trip to come out to. And I know you might be expecting to be in pain, but you have to work on and practice rewiring that way of thinking, right? And the whole manifestation type of thinking, there's a place for it. I'm not talking about that here, but what I want to define it as is you, weeks and months leading up to your big trip, is I want you to visualize yourself and just talk to yourself about how it's gonna be a good trip, that your body is strong, your body is capable, your body is fully able to sit in a car seat for 2 years, for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours with multiple breaks, taking some time out of the actual seat. You're gonna give yourself that, but you're able to do this trip. And you're able to do it without wrecking the entire next week that you're on vacation due to your back being so inflamed. All right, so the next tip is about staying out of extension. Oftentimes we get in our car, welcome to my car by the way, we get in our car, we're trying to get going, we are at the mercy of the type of seat that we're in. We are stuck with either super boxed seats or very square, hard, stiff seats, or we got super comfy seats, squishy seats, which all kind of pack and could affect how we feel. The problem with being in a seat or in a car for too long is defaulting to certain positions. Like for example, after a long drive, you could end up defaulting to more of an anterior pelvic tilt. You're kind of like, you're shifting back, your abs kind of turn off, you've been in this position for too long, and you're kind of getting in this overextended position. Or there's that, then you have people trying to take their stuff and be like, man, my natural arch support isn't doing good. So, and then you start trying to stack pillows and towels and all this other stuff that you may or may not need. But if you try to stack all this stuff, then you're riding in this super extended position, right? And you may not know it. It may not be extremely dominant just yet, but 3 hours of being in this overextended position, and then you get out and your hips are all tight and you're like, man, that jacked me up. And you have all these different kinds of issues. So the best thing you can do is, before you start adding stuff to how you're sitting, is to get in the back of the seat and see how you feel when you're relaxed. If you relax and you feel catching and you feel tension, maybe just posterior tilt your hip, right? Bring your butt under a little bit. Give yourself a little bit of a round in your low back. I'm not saying do this, but get out of that extension, posterior tilt your hip, and see how that feels. It doesn't take much. A very small angle is all you might need. And then drive for a little bit, see how that feels. If you're like, that's just not right, and then you go into a little bit of extension, and that feels a little bit better, then you can start playing with adding rolled up stuff behind your low back. Because again, the goal is to keep yourself in a comfortable stacked position, right? The first point was just staying relaxed. So getting into a position that you can maintain that relaxed mindset or that relaxed physical state, and then focusing on keeping your body in that neutral position. There is no perfect posture. There is no perfect neutral that is good for all people across the board. Some people don't do well with overextension. Some people don't do well with an excessive posterior tilt. So you have to play around with what is good for you. All right, so tip number 3 when it comes to driving in your grocery getter is getting away from the 10 and 2, right? I'm not sure if you remember, but in driver's ed back in the day, 10 and 2. The best thing to do is take your arms from being out of this front forward position, because we kind of tend to sit here and things come forward, right? If you've ever been in the gym and you have a sensitivity in your low back, grab a dumbbell and then hold it out in front of you like this. If this causes you pain, that's a flexion intolerance more than likely. You have issues with load being away from your center mass. Well, when you have your arms out like this, these are loads. This is weight, and your head is a weight, and your shoulders are the same thing. So when you're out here and you've been driving for a long periods of time, even though you're trying to maintain some goodness down here, this tends to kind of take a default, and you're starting to lean and all the weight is being pulled this way, which can cause sensitivity in the muscle tissue in the low back. So let's get away from the 10 and 2. Forget the 10 and 2. Let's think endurance. Let's think long term. When you're back home, you're driving around, going to Walmart, getting all your stuff. Maybe you can do short term 10 and 2. But on long term drives, go back to point number 1. Staying relaxed, keeping your mindset on the road, but also keeping the tissues under control. You don't want to over brace, over contract, over fear, and create this tension that doesn't need to be there. So I grab the bottom of the wheel, right? It'll be somewhere in between this part here where I can bring my shoulder blades back and down and I can be relaxed. That's the whole name of the game, is being able to be relaxed while I'm driving, while I'm focusing on keeping my family alive. I don't flip the minivan, I'm relaxed. And while I'm relaxed, and there's strategies that you can take on for staying relaxed, but my big thing is just breathing, taking deep breaths into my low back, into my butt, into my legs, and keeping these tissues in control, that I'm not being super tense because I feel my back starting to hurt. I just relax myself. Everything's in a neutral, nicely stacked position, but I'm focusing on relaxing and I'm breathing, taking deep breaths into my stomach and allowing the tissues to just chill. So this fourth and final tip is a doozy. Odds are you have never heard this before. It is a thing. It is probably it's something that needs to be talked about more often, and it's a strategy in itself. And there's some research on this. You can go in and research the actual word, and it's called somatic tracking. And ideally what somatic tracking is, because this is a video in itself, but ideally what somatic tracking is, it's the ability to reframe and rewire the way you are viewing and observing and analyzing pain signals in your body. You're looking at them from a different lens, from a lens of safety, from a lens of just curiosity, from a lens of just stepping back and looking at them more as a passenger than a driver. So let that sink in. It's not a form of meditation. I guess you can say it's kind of like mindfulness, but it's a in the moment type of thing that you can do whenever you want, as often as you want. That's super powerful when it comes to reframing and rewiring and viewing certain aspects of what you're experiencing in the moment. So how you can do this is while you're driving, and again, you can Google this word, somatic tracking. There's podcasts, there's lots of great content out there that you can dive deeper into to see more like strategic. I'm gonna do a very brief overview of it, so don't judge me. Somatic tracking essentially is what you're doing is while you're driving, you're experiencing some pain, you're experiencing some tightness, tension, however you describe your own pain. You're viewing your pain as a passenger rather than a driver. So by doing this, what you're doing is while you're experiencing pain, you're not trying to stop it, you're not trying to control it, you're not trying to put barriers on it and keep it in a certain spot. It's 100% passive, because the more you think about something in a negative way, oh my gosh, here it comes, it's here, I'm in pain, I got 800 more miles to go, it's just gonna make the pain worse. You're welcoming the feeling. You're acknowledging that you're experiencing this pain, that you're experiencing this discomfort, but you're doing it from being beside yourself. You're really trying to just get to know the sensation, get to know the feeling of what you're experiencing when it comes to your pain. Is it in my low back? Is it going into my glutes? And you're just there. You're being present with the symptoms and you're viewing it from a different mindset. Because again, we often look at our pain and our symptoms from a negative, aggressive mindset. It's bad, it's terrible, I'm fragile, I'm hurt, I'm broken, the trip is ruined, but you're not viewing it from that, right? It's almost as if you're viewing it from the perspective of someone who doesn't actually deal with pain, but you're more curious because you can visualize the pain. You can visualize a person in pain. You can see that it's in their low back. You can see their surgery site. You can see it kind of throbbing into their glutes or their hips or their obliques, and you're just watching it. And it's a hard concept to describe, but if you go through the practice of looking at it from a non-aggressive, non-negative, controlling way, you'll notice how your pain will desensitize, right? It'll almost start to bring itself back and reduce itself because you're not focusing on it from a negative perspective or focusing on it in a way that is aggressive or trying to stop it or find out why it's happening. You're not doing that. You're simply an observer of your pain. Now, when it comes to the nuts and bolts of somatic tracking, it's best to probably do some more research. I just wanted to introduce a topic to you and kind of give you a starter kit when it comes to how you're thinking about it when it comes to somatic tracking, how you're viewing your pain, and how you're kind of taking a step back from experiencing it and just being the observer. I would highly suggest you check out some different resources. There's actually a podcast that I will link in the description below that you can go, and they actually show you some examples of somatic tracking. It's a really cool concept. It's a really cool strategy that actually works. I promise you, it actually works if you use it and you're consistent with it. So if you want more information about how to do that and some strategies that you can put to work on your next trip, check out the description box below for that link. So that is it. If you experience back pain when driving, I hope these 4 tips are something that you can start putting to use. I hope they're not old news. I hope this is something that you can kind of say, hey, you know, I haven't tried that yet. What is somatic tracking? I've never heard of that. Let's do some research on that. Let's try a different approach on my next vacation. Let's try to think ahead and think more positive and try to put ourselves in the mindset that is lacking in fear, lacking in anxiety, and going into a positive way, a positive outlook. So I hope that helped for you. Let me know what your strategy is when you go on a big road trip and you have experienced back pain, and you've done trips where you have had back pain and trips that you haven't had back pain. What's the difference? How did you get to the point where you were not having back pain on those trips? Is there another strategy that I have not mentioned that you actually do yourself that works really well? I didn't talk about stretching. I didn't talk about stopping and getting out and moving around. I didn't talk about that because that's just common sense, right? You're gonna stop to use the bathroom. You're gonna stop at the rest break, you can get gas. All those things are just natural occurrences. That stuff is great and it's important. But the other 4 things we talked about today really can amplify using those other common tools and to really make some new strides in overcoming your back pain, especially on a trip when you're driving your car. So thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you subscribe. Go over to fitnessforbackpain.com. Tons of content over there, lots of videos, lots of free gifts you can check out. So hopefully getting you out of pain and getting back on track to getting your life back.